Over the years, I've made a lot of modifications to my canoe setup for fishing, and I'm just going to share those quickly because I think there are a few good tips in there. Alright, first things first, the canoe is 15 feet long, flat bottom, single keel, black anodized steel gunnels, and 36-inch beam. So that 36-inch beam, along with the flat bottom, really provides a lot of stability. I've been out in big waves, and I can stand up in the boat when I want to. And using polarized sunglasses, I can see fish pretty effectively sometimes. So that's something I like for fishing a lot, is that flat bottom with a relatively wide beam. Web seats, I think, are essential in summer travel. Keeps your butt cool. Otherwise, it gets really overheated if you have a solid seat like this one, which I'm using right now because A, I have no portages on this trip, and B, so it's not an extra piece of gear to carry, and B, because it's actually cold out and the added warmth is nice, especially on your lower back. It really shields that from the wind, and it's quite nice in cool weather paddling. For portaging, a contoured yoke is essential, I think. You can always get one of the more square yokes, but then if you're doing long portages, you need a yoke pad, and then that's just one more piece of gear to carry. So I don't see the point. I'd rather just have it integrated into the yoke, pay a little bit more for a contoured one. Another piece of gear I don't bring on portage trips, but I otherwise do really enjoy having in the canoe, is this Garmin Echo 501C sonar unit. It just goes over the side with a cable and sticks on with the suction cup, which holds on really well sometimes. You'd be surprised. There's the odd time where it's kind of misbehaves and it might come loose a few times over the course of the day, but it actually works quite well. This piece here is probably the most impactful piece of gear that I've got over the years. The Scottie Rod Holder. It adapts for bait casters too, with that little half circle there. You can troll with a bait caster as well. But for long days in the canoe, long days of paddling, I find it so enjoyable to be able to troll easily as I go along. So that's an essential piece of gear right there. For a net, I like, it's got to be rubberized because it's so much better for the fish. I like a net with a pretty short shank. This one was actually very long, but it's just light aluminum, so I just crimped it off and made it just about 1.5 feet long, the shaft. And then the basket is deep and wide, so you can get pretty big fish in there. It's surprising. And then the paddle, this one's extra long. I can't remember the exact length on it, but if you're ever shopping for a paddle, I recommend getting a bit longer one, because then you can use it while you're standing up, kind of like a stand-up paddleboard, if you've got a stable enough canoe. I also like carrying a small anchor. This is a little 1.5 pound anchor. Folds up nicely, and when I want to leave the canoe in the water and not haul it up on shore, it's great for being able to do that on portage trips. Sometimes you don't want to haul the canoe out of the water and get everything out, and it's convenient. So I just have that tied on with polycord and a big carabiner onto the seat. For fishing gear, I've got a Pflueger Supreme on both of my primary rods combos. Pflueger Supreme, this one's a 6.4 to 1 gear ratio, and I like higher than, oh, fish? Nope, it's just a snag. I like higher than normal gear ratios because if I'm fishing all day, if I can do 20% less work on my retrieve, that's good for my wrist and forearm, because you really can get fatigued by it. And then I've got a 6.6 two-piece Fenwick Nighthawk rod, which is medium fast, and that's great for casting and for jigging. So that covers those two applications, and then my other rod covers also casting, because I want both rods to be able to cast, obviously, but also trolling. I think it was rated at medium fast, but there's really no consistency to the ratings. To me, this is more of a medium action rod, not medium power, medium action. People get those two confused all the time. And because it's got that nice bend, it sets the hook really nicely when I'm trolling. If you know, the Canoe has quite a bit of momentum, so you want the rod to be able to bend back and absorb the hit from the fish without just ripping it out of its mouth, which if you have a really fast action rod, it's more likely to do that. So like I said, another Pflueger Supreme. This one has a 6.2 to 1 gear ratio, which is still above average. Usually, you know, 5.1 to 1 or something like that is pretty typical. So that also helps. Just in general, these Pflueger Supremes have been outstanding. I've really beat them up on portages. I've smashed them into stuff, and they haven't been any worse for wear. It's still super smooth. I do put grease and oil in probably once a year during the winter, just so I can dream about fishing for a little bit. But that's about all the maintenance that I do for them. Oh yeah, and this is a 7-foot ugly stick, one piece, which, you know, for value, ugly stick Elite is pretty good for the money. There are nicer rods out there, obviously, but this did the trick for, I don't know, 80 bucks I think for the rod. Anyway, that's my fishing setup in the Canoe. These are the two rods and reels that I bring on almost every trip now. For taking video, I use a medium-sized tripod. This does extend quite a bit more, but I just leave it at that. And I found that to be the best, most versatile tool for backcountry video. A, it works well in the Canoe, and then B, it works elsewhere. Some mounts that you can get for the Canoe just don't work anywhere else, so I like that. The only thing is, it's top heavy, and if your weight shifts in the Canoe, as I learned on the last trip, your camera will go overboard. And just a quick note about my camera gear while I'm at it, since people seem to ask about it. For a little point and shoot and underwater drop-proof, shock-proof, freeze-proof camera, I like Panasonic Lumix. I love Panasonic products. That served me really well. And then my main camera is a Panasonic Lumix FZ300, which I got this spring and has been excellent. It's splash proof. It's not submersible like this one is, but it'll take some water. It did survive being submerged, luckily, on the last trip, so it can withstand quite a bit. It's got this 180 screen, which is imperative. I really love that, because if you want to do selfie mode video, you can frame your shot and all that, so it makes that a lot easier. I use a circular polarizing filter for sunny days and sunny conditions. Just saturates your colors better. And then the most imperative part of this setup is this Rode Videomicro external microphone. It's a directional mic, and it comes with this windscreen. And that windscreen is so imperative to outdoor videography. Can't do it without it. Otherwise your audio is going to be garbage in any kind of a breeze. Anyway, that's about it. Hope this helps.